I have evil thoughts. Everyone has evil thoughts, but like I especially have evil thoughts. So doesn't that make me a bad person? And the answer to that question, whenever I've levied it online or to my friends in mass, was simply anyone who is concerned about their own state of morality, anyone who cares enough about being a good person to wonder if they are indeed a bad person, is probably a good person. So like, don't worry about it. If you're thinking whether or not you're a good person or a bad person, you're probably a good person. And you're meant to be like, phew, thank goodness, that works. But like, that doesn't work for me. Because now, what you've given me is not a tip. What you've given me is a separate basis for a logical argument against the fact that I'm a good person. Because now, I was entirely wondering, am I a bad person based on the bad thoughts I have? You're saying that thought alone is good, so you had a good thought, and that makes you a good person. And now I'm kind of left here wondering, why does that good thought outweigh the bad thought? Why are they not on an equal footing, you know? Like, is the power of my morality is what makes me a good or bad person based entirely up here, cognitively? Or is it external, like what I do to the people around me and the community and the society that I dwell in? Hi, my name's Quinn Liachi. Same face, new place, I've moved. I'll show you guys a little bit of the new digs at the end of the video, or I don't know, skip ahead. I'm not cable television, I'm not radio in the aughts, you can do what you want. But today I want to talk about moral OCD because apparently that's a thing I have. Apparently when you ask enough people in your life enough times, hey, here's this 10-minute rant about me wondering if I'm doing the right thing, they will respond to you with the sentence, Quinn, you have moral OCD. And then you kind of look it up and you're like, yeah, maybe, but also like, sure, I've got this thing, but I still feel like I'm correct in the overthinking of this philosophy. So, I think we as people daydream about saving babies from burning buildings or like rescuing a child who like goes out to get their ball that bounced into traffic, and we carry them away from like a semi-truck because those are objectively like good things. You're saving the cat. And I think we all hope that when presented with those opportunities, we would do the heroic thing, the right thing. We hold on to that idea in our heads because we want to be good. And the issue is like, not everyone's going to run into situations like that. You don't have an opportunity to exercise a feat of heroics to that extent in your daily life. You probably won't ever likely have to encounter something like that anytime in your lifetime. But you hold that fantasy close to your heart because if you know you would do that, you have to be good, right? And I think lots of people hold that fantasy or some iteration of it close to them. And the counter to this is online you'll see lots of examples of bystander effect, of people kind of sitting around while someone is being picked on, and then finally another bystander comes and like intervenes in the situation to like save the person being picked on. What you'll then see is like lots of the bystanders get angry at the person who intervened. Not because they disagree with the person intervening, but because they have to believe that the person intervening isn't acting appropriately, because if they were acting appropriately, that person's the hero. And then my closely held fantasy that I would be the hero in a case such as this, where someone needed saving, that's shattered. I needed that. You intervening tells me I'm a bad person. So we collectively do agree that there is something we want to hold precious up here in regards to our morality. I would say that's just like a fact, that's a baseline. And as such, we do have to assume that like our thoughts influence our actions, therefore our thoughts are what help us become good or evil. So like, not that I meant that there are intrusive thoughts and then there are like purposeful thoughts. And for those who are in the dark, I'm sure most of you are aware, but intrusive thoughts are just kind of when your brain gives you a dark little notion. For example, like sometimes you hold a baby and then there's a thought that kind of hops in that's like, hey, what if you smash that thing? Or sometimes you're driving in traffic and your brain is like, hey, what if you just kind of, like real quick, like end some lives, change the trajectory of everyone's lives forever. Just with a little, like, wouldn't that be interesting? And I think like in your formative years, and like perhaps in your early 20s, I definitely struggled with this. You're like, oh, like, that's me. Like, I'm thinking that came from within, that I have bad thoughts. That makes me a bad person. That's no longer really something I struggle with. What I now struggle with is, okay, me having the intrusive thought of like kidnapping someone and then dangling them off a building for the just sheer fuckery of it is an intrusive thought. But the villain monologue I'm doing, that feels like me. Like, is this a creative writing exercise that I've latched on to an intrusive thought? Or like, is that me? Like, is there a part of me that is taking sadistic pleasure from the concept of something that was given to me by an intrusive thought, but now I am entertaining in a manner that is more connected to me organically than to like my brain neurons kind of firing in a Tourette's-esque type of way. So obviously I fantasize about, saving a child from a burning building, and perhaps I would do that. But obviously also I'm doing this fantasizing about giving a villain monologue while dangling some poor man off a cliff. And maybe, would I don't know, maybe I am the upset bystander in the social media video who was just sitting and hoping that this was a case I didn't need to interfere in because I know I'm a good person, so therefore a good person would have stepped in. If I didn't step in, then this scenario doesn't need a good person. I also struggle with bad intentions coloring my good actions. Imagine for me a quadrant, or 4 quadrants rather, if you will, You could do it. I believe in you. You're doing great. Up here we have, bad intentions, bad outcome. Like you tried to murder someone for no reason, you successfully murder them. Bad person, easy to say. Over here, diagonally, you've got good intentions, good outcome. You tried to feed the homeless, you succeeded in feeding the homeless. Great, awesome, good for you. Over here you have like, what would it be? Good intentions, bad outcome. You try to feed the homeless and then like, you didn't realize the food was spoiled. You accidentally gave the homeless food poisoning. That sucks, but like you didn't mean to. Still a bad outcome, but like one could argue that you did so with good intentions. And even though you've hurt someone and that pain is real, they can feel that pain and that pain is legitimate, but like you are not an evil person because you were not aware. Like you acted with the full knowledge that you had at your capacity. No one can really say that like you are a bad person. You've maybe done a bad thing, but you're not a bad person. I was watching the video while editing, had a thought. There are obviously also situations where a person's sense of morality is so skewed that they might have good intentions that lead to a bad outcome. But like them thinking they had good intentions was kind of just messed up generally. Like people who hear news that someone's child died and they respond with, oh, well, like at least they're in heaven now. That's a very fucked up thing to say to someone who might not need to, who definitely doesn't need to hear that. And no matter how like good your intention are is of being like, well, I'm trying to give them hope because they will see their child again, and I believe in eternal life, and I want to save your soul, and I'm giving you a compliment by saying that your child ended up in heaven. That those are good intention things, I would maybe argue, but your lack of knowledge of what was appropriate led to a bad outcome. And then later on argue in the video that having too much of an awareness of my actions leads to good outcomes but colors my intention. So perhaps the less you know about the good or evil of your actions, the worse you do on accident because you're just not socially aware. And the more you know, perhaps you're doing more good things, but they're discolored by you thinking about the possible ways you could gain from it down the line. Throwing this into the video. What I struggle with is this quadrant up here, the fourth one, which is bad intentions, good outcome. In the similar vein of like corporations that are like, hey, we're trying to get a tax cut, so we'll donate this amount to charity, you know, if it is even like a legitimate charity. But like, let's say, you know, for a $10 million tax cut or whatever, some corporation's like, oh yeah, let's give money to the Boy Scouts. The Boy Scouts get the money, but also this corporation did so selfishly to gain something out of it. This is kind of where I live, because like, I do good things. Like, I'll hold the door open for people. I donate to charity. Sometimes I like pick up trash off the side of the road. Whenever a political candidate I like is running, I do canvassing or phone banking for them. I could even like tell myself this stuff, like making content for queer people that they resonate with, is also like a good thing. I like try to help my friends whenever I can. I try to provide resources wherever I can. But like, I feel like my intentions discolor my actions. I feel like I know too much about what I'm doing. For example, like whenever I hold the door open for someone, that's more so to avoid the guilt of if I just let it like slam shut in front of their face, right? Like if someone's right behind me, it feels like a dick move. It feels bad if I was just like, oh, well, they got it, you know? Like it feels better for me to leave it open. And like, sure, they benefit from it. I'm sure they're grateful for that. But like, I know I got something out of it. It's the sense of alleviation of guilt. Same if I like give money to a homeless person. I now work downtown, and it's a study in the disparity of wealth, because like you have the super affluent who live in high rises and like eat at, you know, $100 restaurants, and also every other street smells like urine because the homeless people are congregating in areas where wealth coalesces because they have a better chance of like having money donated to them. As such, I run into a lot more homeless people. As such, I give money to a lot of homeless people, and like I think they enjoy that and they do benefit from that, and they can eat now. But I do it because like, I don't know, it's $5 to like feel good, you know? Like I recognize that the outcome is that they eat. I recognize that the outcome is that like they can live on. But there is a little like gremlin inside of me kind of counting beans as an abacus, being like, oh, we could do a little bean in the like side of the abacus that says you're a good person because you've done good thing. And I would say like that's not like the right intention. Like if the secondary intention that I have is to like genuinely feed a man, but the first intention is to like feel good about myself, and then like also along the line, is me holding on to the fact that this is a thing I've done, then I haven't, like, then it's performative good, right? I would assume so. I had a conversation with my friend Ness about this, because they were like, oh yeah, like when I give money to a homeless person, that money's like gone. I don't think about it again. Like I will forget about it. And then I am like, no, I remember basically every single time I've ever given money to a homeless person. Like there is a tally running in my head of like the good deeds I've done. So like that is at least like a difference between us. Like we could donate the same amount, and like let's say we make the same income, or let's just say we're donating the same percentage of our income. But like, so the outcomes will stay the same. But if Ness is genuinely able to do this out of the goodness of their hearts, and then I'm kind of being like, oh, like I feel good and like I'm a good person, yeah, da 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 da. I feel like I'm now walking around with the intention of I am now owed something, you know, like I am good because I've done good thing. I deserve some sort of like moral reward, you know? So, and I'm now walking around with like moral chip on shoulder. So like in comparison here, we would at least have to acknowledge that like, yes, outcome same, but like Ness is a better person than I am. And I think some people would point to that and be like, Quinn, moral OCD, like stop fucking worrying about it. But like, it does matter, I feel like. Like that is real, that is me, and like these things color my actions. In addition, I also feel like I acknowledge, like I feel like I know too much about any time I do something good. For example, whenever I give money to like someone in need, there is also an element of in my head of like I am much more likely to like be someone. I'm more likely to end up homeless than I am to like become a multimillionaire or billionaire. Like I am pushing money into like an economy that like sustains me, right? Like I recognize that I live in a community, and anything I do that benefits the community, whether I'm like putting money into it, into like independent businesses, holding the door open for someone, doing something nice for someone, yada yada yada, the community feels better about that, and then I benefit from that because eventually the community will like then help me, you know, like if I beautify the like neighborhood around me by like picking up trash, usually like that will help people in the future prevent trash from being thrown because, you know, broken window theorem. And then I get to walk around and be like, huh, like sure, I picked up the trash and like that was a investment of my time. But also I get to live in a more beautiful neighborhood, not only because I cleaned, but also because people took more effort to make sure the area was clean once they saw that they lived in a clean area, right? Same with just like understanding how basic economics works. Like, for example, with the Mom Dami helping out the families who need to have like their kid watch and then they get to have a date night. That is very nice, and like that's a very morally good thing to do. But like you, like part of your brain also understands like, oh, they are also taking the money that they have and like putting it into local restaurants, putting it into like maybe movie theaters or entertainment. That you're like spreading that wealth around, and you recognize that there is a benefit to doing that good thing. And I feel like at a certain point, if I recognize the multitude of benefits for every good deed I enact, doesn't like everything I do become a little bit selfish? Like if I understand that every good deed I have I make is an investment, if I understand that every good deed I have will like perhaps come back to me or supplement me and like my welfare in some way, then like is that not I'm selfish, right? And that's kind of where I'm ending up, because now I'm like, Okay, I know the intrusive thoughts aren't me, but like, what about the stuff that's purposeful? What about like all the things that like I'm too aware of? And the thing is, I feel like this makes sense. And like maybe you're looking from the outside in and being like, yeah, Quinn, that makes sense in the same way that someone is like, I have to flip the light switch on and off 4 times or else someone dies, and it alleviates that pressure in my head, you know? And maybe this is like me flicking the light switch on and off 4 times. And it's sensible for me to do that because then I avoid the like pain of having to like wonder. But I do think it's important to know where I am and where I stand so that I can know that when I act, am I benefiting people truly? Because, like, I would say my goal as an individual is to be like an asshole with a heart of gold. I love being an asshole with a heart of gold. Very much like I'll show, like, you get into a car crash, I will show up to the hospital room and roast the fuck out of you and then, like, tell you that you smell like shit and say that you look awful. But I'll be like the first or second person there. And also when I leave, there will be flowers on the bedside. You know, like that's kind of what I'm aiming for as a person. And I I wonder if like me aiming for that is me accepting my thoughts and being like, this is the best I can do. I don't know. Additionally, on a lesser level, I think I'm also like verbally, I'm very conceited. Verbally, like all of my friends feel the need to take me down a peg because I am very full of myself. I think I'm great. I think I'm awesome. But like I say that out loud and then like deep internally at my core I'm like, oh no, I'm a piece of shit. Like, oh no, I suck. Like, oh, I feel the need to vocalize and aggrandize like my every accomplishment because at my core and at my base I'm nothing. So like I need to be taken down a peg because I'm so vocal about it, but I'm vocal about it because like I am deeply insecure about what I actually have to offer. But then I feel like that's kind of like what I'm struggling with. Is my sense of morality only me deciding whether I can offer something or not? Do I even understand what it means to be a good person? Or do I only understand goodness in the sake of giving and receiving, providing and being provided for? And is morality more or less than that? There's that sentiment from Kite Runner? Book Thief? Kite Runner, I think. Where the protagonist's dad is like, the only crime there is theft, you know? Murder is theft of a life. Lying is theft of a person's right to the truth. Theft is theft, so on. And I think that concept is familiar with the idea that like morality is giving and receiving, taking. Like to be a bad person is to engage in theft. You are taking something that should have been given. So like in that sense, I'm like, maybe I have a good understanding of ethics. So like maybe I am like toying around with the correct thing here, like giving my time, giving my resources, yada, yada, yada. But I also feel like if that's where my head's at, am I taking anything from anyone with selfish intentions by having selfish intentions? And I think I've convinced myself yes, because I'm down the line going to like take something, or in the moment I have taken a sense of righteousness. But like, where did that sense of righteousness come from? Like, where did me like being able to walk lighter because I did something good for someone come from? Has that been taken from you? Is this just a victimless crime and I've gained something but no one has lost anything? Have I just kind of picked up an ethical dollar off the road that like didn't really, belong to anyone, that no one really missed. And I think I would be very unsatisfied if I had an answer. I truly, truly don't know if I want to be a good person or if I just want to wonder perpetually if I am. Because I think there's a lot of pressure that comes from deciding, yes, I'm good. Because I think you can't decide that you're good and have that then be a soy versus soy. You can't like be like, oh yes, and this is now a permanent facet. I feel like you have to wonder. People change, people evolve, devolve, adapt, crumble. You can be a good person and then over time become a bad one. And I feel like arriving at an answer and being able to concisely say, yes, today I'm a good person, is self-defeating, because maybe in 10 years I become worse. But if I decided 10 years ago, hey, I'm a good person, that view of myself is now difficult to mesh up with who I am now. It's the same with like how typically people on the political right are like, oh, whatever our people do is good. There are no bad actions or good actions. It's simply good people and bad people, and whatever our people do is good and justified, and the ends justify the means, yada, yada, yada. And whatever you lefty libtards do is evil because you're evil already from the root, and like everything you do is bad. If our guy commits felonies, well, actually that's fine because like he's a good guy. If your guy commits felonies, ho ho ho. And if your guy feeds children, actually those are bad children. But if our guy feeds children, like they're good children. So like I don't think I have a moral ability to say that I'm good, because then it could change. So like I think I could decide more easily, like I'm a writer, I'm creative. I like to hang out with my friends. Today I like to rock climb, I like to read. But because then, once I stop reading, it's easier to be like, oh, well, I stopped reading. I'm probably not a reader anymore. But like morality is so ephemeral that if I were to make that decision, I think it would be difficult for me to determine when I stopped, if I ever started. And I feel like maybe maybe morality is just normal. No. No, it's definitely something I need to go to a therapist for. But yeah, I think that's me for this video. After the camera stops rolling, I will still just keep thinking about every single thing I've talked about, and then some. But thank you to my patrons. I have editing back. Check it out. Bam, names right here. I didn't need to edit, but it was nice to know that I could if I wanted to. I don't know. If you're here still, let me show you the place. I'm not going to talk about moral OCD anymore. This is just a little thing now. You come up the stairs. Wow, it's dark. You see, wow, cool lights. They're coming from there. Little bookshelf, some art. The only art I really got. Drinks, books, skateboards. Couch that I just got yesterday. Eventually a TV and entertainment center will go here. Here's my card collection. Lights. Eventually vinyls will go up. I'm thinking record player right there. Kitchen. Oh yeah, I accidentally ordered like way too many onions and way too many potatoes. Second bathroom. office space. Eventually, it will look better. And then... bedroom. Second bookshelf. Trans flag. Stuff. Bed. Closet. Bathroom. Alright, kids. That was me. Bye. Or, I don't know, like... tell me whether you agree or not. Tell me whether I'm crazy. I feel like I'm sane. But I feel like every crazy person thinks they're sane. Which then leads us back into, does a crazy person realize they're crazy? Which is then kind of like correlating parallel with like, does an evil person wonder if they're evil?